Thank you guys all for coming again. I hope you're getting some food, a little bit of beverages. Thank you guys again for coming for Dianne, our mom's memorial. It took a little while to get it together, but hey, you guys are all here, we're all here. We're gonna get the program, such as it is, started. But the most important part is my mom's friend Deborah Ross, one of her best buddies, longtime friend. They got in a lot of trouble together. Do you want to tell any stories, Deborah? No? Taking the Fifth Amendment, are you? Okay, good. That's good. Deborah wrote a song for my mom.
It's called My Friend Dianne. I'm not a professional, but they said it's okay. So if I make a mistake, I understand.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Deborah. Let's see if we can do this without the mic, and then if we need a little, you want a little mic or no? All right, so thank you for your attention to Miss Deborah. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. That's really awesome. I want to thank you guys for coming. Our caterer back there who's been hustling her bustle, and her name is Pamela Burton. I don't know if you guys heard her. Thank you. Let's put our hands together for Pamela. Yeah. We also have a donation. My mom was very involved with the Friends of the Altadena Library, boy, for the last 12 years. Thank you guys for letting her hang out with you and boss you around and drive you crazy. I'm sure that happened. But there's a donation bucket. She was really involved with Friends of the Altadena Library. There's a QR code. Please drop some money in there. I promise to make sure that it goes to them, not to me to buy beer. But I promise that. We also have a lime tree back there you may see. You may wonder, what is that little lime tree in the corner? My mom, at the end of the day, we would have adult beverages. Okay, we're adults here, except for the kids. You're not an adult, right? No adult beverage for you, Emma. Okay, good. All right, anyway, so end of the day, we would have a vodka with limeade, sparkling limeade from Trader Joe's. I recommend it highly. But my mom would like a big old slice of lime in there. And my mom, she'd wait for me to come home. She's like, oh, Michelle. She's like, I need my drink. I'm like, dude, the vodka's in the freezer, the limeade's in the office. Get busy. She goes, well, it tastes better when you make it. How could I argue with that? That's really, and yes, I do have a way with some alcohol beverages. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So we had an orange tree in the front yard, which for years and years, a lot of you know, it was very prolific. It got root bound, and then it got some termites in there, so I had to take it out. But we're going to plant the lime tree in the front yard at a later date and time to be determined. But what I thought was we'd write some personal notes on some biodegradable paper. You guys can write notes to my mom, fold it up, and then we will plant your words with the lime tree. So I think it'd be very personal and kind of a cool thing. And so there's graphite pencils. Write your little notes to my mom, which she would love to have those words to her. And then go ahead and fold it up. None of us are going to read it. It'll be planted with my mom's tree, and then I will make a vodka tonic or a vodka limeade. And if you guys want to come over and have vodka limeade, come on down. Tomorrow, 5:30, work for you? Good. Boom. Let's do it. So yes, and then what else do we have? Chucky, are you ready to do your thing here? Because it's 1 o'clock already. Come up, or do you want to sit at the table, honey?
No, I'll stand up.
Did I forget something?
Prepared remarks. No, I said Tuffy's outside.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody. My name is Charles Thomas. They call me, well, Dianne called me Chucky.
Chucky.
And a whole bunch of you guys call me Chucky. I've been around for quite a while. So I want to talk about Dianne from a real personal perspective, but also from a global perspective. I have some comments that I wrote down because I'm old and I can't remember everything anymore. So bear with me. So back in 1937, Dora and Carl Anderson, they had no idea that they would bring into the world a model that could actually impact world problems and solve a lot of world problems. It wasn't their plan, but they were just the kind of people that you could expect something like that from. They were both people who were in deep service to other people, especially those who had far less than they had. So Dora was a doctor of chiropractic, and Carl was a nurse who worked with Dora. Now imagine back in 1937, Pasadena, still a very segregated Pasadena, having a black woman, doctor of chiropractic. And the very first one, by the way, in this family, their family, the very first one here. And even more remarkable, imagine for Carl, your wife being your boss. So, I feel you, brother. My wife, my boss. So Dora made impressive achievements, but don't think that Carl sat around and basking in Dora's glory, because he was one of the first people that pioneered and brought the Boys Club to Pasadena. Yeah. And he did something else that's no. He was also involved with the CIA. Yeah, but that's still shrouded in mystery. Maybe Tuffy will speak to it, I don't know. Everyone's saying no. But all we know is that at an early age, Dianne and brother Carl Jr. and parents Dora and Carl were shuffled out of the area in the middle of the night in a refrigerated boxcar to live in Bell Mountain. That's up in Victorville, okay? Now, okay, so let's go back to August 17, 1937, the day that Carl and Dora brought Dee Dee, as they call Dianne, into the world. And in her 85 years, how did Dianne become a model for solving world problems? Well, I experienced it most of my life with her, but I'll tell you, she lived a life that was really maintaining 3 powerful virtues. Virtues, if applied, could probably solve world problems. Dianne was a hardcore volunteer, as I'm sure everybody here knows that she was a hardcore volunteer. Dianne was a courageous worker. Now, you can be a worker, and you can be a courageous worker. And a courageous worker is almost unstoppable. And the third thing is Dianne, she really knew how to be a friend. And all of you probably felt that here. So, let's go back to her early life, the life that helped to build the foundation of these virtues. One of those foundational elements was her ever-present and stalwart cousin, Eugene Poole Anderson. You gotta be tough to be a black man growing up in the 40s with a name like that. So, what do you think was an appropriate nickname would be? Tuffy. That's her cousin Tuffy right there. But I did know that Dianne loved her some Tuffy. She really did. And he had a profound impact on her, as did growing up in Victorville, surrounded by her pet chickens, riding her horse named Red to school, and having a special pet that you just don't get to see very often out in the desert. Anybody guess what that special pet was? An alligator. Oh, I'm sorry, child. It was an alligator out in the desert. So you gotta be sort of a rare breed to have a pet alligator out in the desert, and the Anderson family was definitely a rare breed. They even had a nickname for themselves, the Desert Rats. And I'm sure the white folks out there had a couple of special nicknames for them too. They eventually moved to San Bernardino, where Dianne began to fine-tune her 3 virtues at home, at a home that Dora and Carl put together. Is a home that they opened up for boys with special needs. And Dianne was very active there in the school for many years. Dianne was a hardcore volunteer and a courageous worker. And to this day, the Anderson School still sits there. It's a beautiful thing. Yes, it's still serving those boys. So from there, Dianne moved back to Pasadena, and she began working for HUD, but we should just call it, she didn't work it in the hood, because she was working in some of the toughest housing projects in South LA. And aside from her daily administrative tasks, Dianne did the usual stuff like stopping drug deals, fights, and assaults. And as she sauntered through the projects, she didn't need to do much to stop those things. She just sauntered through with the elegance of a runway model, and sometimes she would raise an eyebrow, or she would give a disapproving look, and most illicit business would stop. Dianne had that kind of presence. Dianne was a courageous worker. And if the look didn't work, she had a special weapon. It's called a hug. She was very good at hugs. But not everyone liked those hugs or liked her giving those hugs, especially her 2 daughters. Because her 2 daughters thought she was too liberal with those hugs. And sometimes Dianne might hug an unsavory person or hug somebody that they thought might be dangerous to Dianne. But she hugged them anyway. Dianne knew how to be a friend. So after retiring in 2002, Dianne joined Jimmy and Rosalind Carter and 3,000 other Habitat for Humanity volunteers to build 100 homes in South Africa. Dianne was a hardcore volunteer and a courageous worker. After her return from South Africa, she got a little antsy. She came out of retirement and she went to work for the admissions office at Westridge School in Pasadena. There's a whole bunch of Westridge folks in here too. Look at them, okay? They're around here. And then after that, she went on to volunteer for over a decade and serve on the board of the Friends of the Altadena Library, raising funds, bringing awareness and support to the libraries in Altadena. Amen to that. She worked hard at that, and there's a whole bunch of you folks, Altadena folks. We got the main person over there. So, Dianne has a deep love for books, and she wanted everybody else to have access to those books as well. Dianne was a hardcore volunteer and knew how to be a friend. Speaking of books, Dianne was in the same book club for over 20 years with some of her dearest friends. Dianne knew how to be a friend. And don't think that for 1 minute, because she didn't have a man in her life during that span of time, that the fire burnt out. One night at book club, when her blood pressure got dangerously low, and they actually had to call in the paramedics because her blood pressure was so low. The story goes that Dianne was more interested in a cute paramedic than her own blood pressure. You can check that out with some other people. Dianne always had two favorite hobbies: shopping for clothes and returning clothes. She was on a first name basis with all the clerks at Macy's, Nordstrom Rack, Ross's. We're almost there, folks. And I'm really, really thankful that she had that hobby, because what she didn't return to the stores, she often gave to my wife. And that saved us all kinds of money. As anybody knows, I like to save money. And adding an exquisite apparel to my wife's wardrobe. Speaking of my wife, what does an 80-year-old African-American woman have in common with a 50-year-old white woman? Apparently everything. I can't tell you how many times Dianne would call up the house on a Saturday and Sunday, and she would tell me how much she loved Sharon. And then she would end it with, "I hope you're treating her right, Chucky." So I couldn't do anything wrong. I had to really stay straight and narrow with Dianne. What else did Dianne love? She loved her time with her friends at the Rosebud Aquatic Center, that's for sure, and she loved her little pool noodles, because in spite of having a very nice pool in her backyard, she never learned to swim. So, and how do I know Dianne? I know her because she's been a lifelong friend of mine and a supporter of the organization that we've both been part of for over 45 years. Outward Bound Adventures, and there's a whole bunch of OBA people here, a whole bunch of OBA people here. Dianne was a hardcore volunteer. So how do we solve the world problems? Well, live your life like Dianne. Just follow Dianne's example. Be a courageous worker. Be a hardcore volunteer. And know how to be a friend. And learn how to swim, especially if you have an alligator in a swimming pool. So, let's never forget Dianne's virtues, please, all of us. Let's carry them on with us, or her name. Say it often. I know that I will. Now, let's hear from two of the people that cringed when Dianne gave hugs to bad people. Her most beautiful prodigy, Michelle and Marcy. Thank you.
All right, so I was told that the youngest and the most beautiful goes first, so. All right, so I'm Marcy Rochester. My sister and I would like to welcome all of you and taking the time out of your busy days to come and spend time celebrating, finally, our mom. And, you know, it's hard to imagine that it's almost been a year since her passing. And it's just, I think back to just a lot of the times, you know, it's easy or getting easier. The mourning and the grieving, it's still happening, but it's getting a little little softer for me, which is good. You know, it's not always, there are days, of course. This word came across my Facebook timeline. I had to write it down. It is natsukashi. It's a Japanese word that loosely translates into a small thing that suddenly and joyously brings you back to fond memories. Luckily, it's more memories of my mom are falling into this category. But there are still some memories, the one I'm going to talk about right now, that don't. This is going to be about the day that she passed. And it's a hard memory, but it's an important memory that I wanted to share. So she passed away on September 11th of last year. And I was flying back and forth between my home in Livermore now and LA the last couple of weeks of her life. You know, she turned 85 and then spent the next 25 days in the hospital in increasing states of frustration and pain. And the pain got so bad that we finally were able to get a pain specialist that listened to what we wanted, and that was for her to be out of pain. You know, she tried a number of different cocktails, and some would knock her out, make her, you know, semi-lucid, but she would always have this, her brow was furrowed, like she was in pain. And talk to the doctor again. It's like, you know, please do something to help her pain. And so finally they came up with a drug cocktail of like every single drug in the world that did finally help her pain. The furrowed brow was gone, but she was pretty much unresponsive. So the nurses at City of Hope, some are good, some, that's a whole story. They told us that, you know, the hearing is the last sense that goes, so spend time talking to your mom. You know, tell her you love her, tell her it's okay to go. She can hear you. You know, so we did that. That last day, it was my sister and I, and my cousins, Michael and Pam, the caterer. We all went into the City of Hope. We had kind of figured out how to bypass their little one visitor at a time rule. So we saunter into her room, like we do, and you know, everything is kind of hushed tones and very respectful, very reverent. And you know, then, as cousins do, we started talking and reminiscing about all the good times that we'd had. And you know, we spent so much time at the picnic tables right out here. And so we started getting, you know, the tones were no longer as hushed, and we started to get a little loud. And then a nurse walked in to take Mom's vitals, and she's like, you know, this Mrs. Moore, she's one strong lady. She is hanging on. And she looked at all of us, she's like, so which one of you owes her money? And it just, I thought I paid, but, so it just, you know, we skipped a beat, we all kind of looked at each other like, and then just bust out in laughter. I mean, we were doubled over, crying, slapping each other, in the most inappropriate setting for that, but it was the thing, I think, that my mom heard. So I flew home that day, got in about 6:40, landed, and you know, there's a text from my sister. She's like, call me. So I knew what that meant. You know, I called, and my mom had passed. Our mom had passed at like 6:28. To this day, in my heart, I know, and in my head, I believe. She heard that laughter. We weren't crying at that time. She heard us laugh. And I think that's why she knew that she could go. Because if you can laugh, you're gonna be okay. And that is what my mom gave to all of us, is laughter and love. So to her, love you, and we're laughing. Thank you.
Yes, we have to hug. We're not big huggers, but we did it.
Michelle, can you go a little further out?
Thank you, Marcy. That was good. I'm not crying, you're crying. Right? Okay. I'm not crying. Schmitty, you're crying. Let's see. Anybody want to say something about Dianne? I know you guys all have some stories. Let's keep it clean because, come on, I'm her daughter. So if there's anything like sexy stuff, I don't want to know about. Oh, one day we went to the what's that called? At the where they have the open house and the houses on Mendocino Lane, and they closed up some of the houses. You can walk through there and see the homes and stuff. I forget what that's called, but anyway, so we went there last summer. One of my friends from pickleball helped us get in, and it was the best thing. And we're walking through, and one of the guys from the pool, I don't know if he's here or not, he goes, "Dianne, I don't recognize you with your clothes on." I'm like, clothes on, Mom. She's like, "Oh, hi, you." What? And I'm like, "Mom, explain." She's like, "What?" So anyway, anybody have some stories that are, okay, they can be dirty, yeah. Yes, sir. All right, cuz. Here's Michael Burton. What up, cuz?
Yes, but I didn't owe the money. That must have been Pam. I'm Pam's younger brother, cousin to Michelle, Marcy, Timothy, and Terry, wherever they are, and Pat Rochester, my mom. I don't know where she. Oh, there she is back there in the back. One of the funniest stories to me when I was a little kid, and maybe the family can remember this, we were grunion hunting at the beach. See, they're already laughing. It may not be funny to you guys, but Dianne had this favorite skillet that she loved, and the skillet. Somebody was washing it or cleaning it, right? And the cast iron skillet went out into the ocean like a boat, but it sank like the Titanic. So Dianne ran after it, but she talked about that skillet all the time. That same night, there was a piece of foil that was on the open fire that we had. It would float up and then come back down. Uncle Carl and his antics, I don't want to tell you what he said about a baby bottle, but anyways, this piece of foil floated up, and I'm a little kid, and when she said it's not done on the other side, she got it out of the air, flipped it over, and says, "We got to cook it on this side." May not be funny to you guys, but I was a little kid, and I just fell out laughing. That memory sticks in my head all the time. So every Tuesday, Dianne and I would talk, and that was one of the ones I remember.
All right, who's got another silly, funny, awesome? Okay, Miss Deborah, this is our harpist. Let's give another round for our lovely harpist, please. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deborah Ross, and I met Dianne through Eugene Anderson in the 80s. And I went to a gathering that she was giving. And then I remember meeting Marcy when she was pretty in the face and small in the waist. And I remember, she's still beautiful and small in the waist. And I met Michelle. I've been knowing her more than Marcy because she was living somewhere else. But anyway, here's the story. Dianne and I go way back. We did a lot of fun things together. And I remember one day she called me. She said, "I'm so bored. I don't know what to do." I said, "Well, why don't you come in? I'm having dinner with some friends of mine." And gave her the address, and we started hanging out with certain friends. And we would go to Ojai every year for Christmas at a friend of mine's house. And we would have Christmas there. And then we would all, for each birthday, like when it was my birthday, every one of us would try to pick the most expensive restaurant and the best restaurant to go to. So she picked a restaurant out for me, and we would go there in each one, and then we would go to the Arboretum to sit outside to listen to classical music, and I took her there for her birthday. But anyway, Dianne to me was a combination of Dianne, what's the young lady, Carol Burnett? I'm telling you, she was funny. And yeah, she was very funny. I mean, she would have me in tears laughing. And we did so many things together. We had so many secrets together. And I loved her very much. And I miss my friend. We were very close. And I wish she was here now. I miss her conversations on the phone, and we're discussing problems that we had. But I loved her dearly. And our biggest conversation was her cousin, Eugene Anderson, and her daughter, Michelle, and her daughter, Marcy. But we had a great time together. I know you guys don't know me very well, maybe a few, when she would give her parties. But she did give me a wonderful birthday party at her house. And I love her and I miss her, and we had so many things in common, and we did so many things together. And I love her and I miss her very much. So anyway, anyone needs to say anything?
Thank you, Miss Deborah. Anybody? Oh boy, here we go.
I'm Kimberly, and I'm the daughter-in-law of Diane's very best friend, Jeannie Prince. Yeah, and they were piggybacking on Chuck's about how she knew how to be a friend. Yes, she was the most incredulous friend to my mother-in-law, Jeannie. If ever you want a friend in life, that was like a model. And my mother-in-law passed away before Diane, but during the time that my mother-in-law was in a facility, Diane was there. I mean, she was there. She made sure that she saw her on a daily basis. It was just phenomenal. But I would like to tell a little funny story, piggybacking on Chuck again, about how they just love good-looking men. You know, they're just So we were at my daughter's graduation. Oh, that was another thing. Diane would attend every event that my mother-in-law's family would have. It was like, they were like sisters. And we were at this graduation event. And my mother-in-law, she was going through her medical problems and that. And she was suffering from like high blood pressure and different things. So she had an episode where they figured they needed to call 911. So the paramedics came, and it was these big hunk of guys. You know, paramedics, they are like hunks, and they're like really, you know, good looking. So there it was, my mother-in-law, who was kind of all halfway passed out, Diane, my mom, you know, they all shared this room together. And when the firefighters came in, the paramedics came in, all of a sudden, all of the attention were turned to them. And even my mother-in-law, she was like, oh, I'm okay now. But yeah, there was, yeah, so there were a lot of fond memories, and I loved Diane. She was like my mother-in-law. I mean, they were like on the same level. I just loved Diane, so I'm happy to have shared this with you.
Yes, my mom and Jeannie were so close. They got in a lot of trouble together too, but those two ladies were so close. My mom passed away on Jeannie's birthday. Just, I mean, you know, it wasn't planned, but it just couldn't have been more of a kismet kind of relationship, just to show how close those two old gals were, you know. So it's really pretty special. Anybody else have some? Come on, Chaya. Go, honey.
Is this working? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, my name's Chaya. My mom, sitting right there next to my aunt, is Andrea, and she was another person who benefited from Diane's book addiction. They were in their book club together, so I saw Diane a lot. But I'm glad that my Uncle Chuck brought up the orange tree, because that orange tree was the bane of my existence. because Diane was always borrowing our grapefruit picker. Now, I loved my grapefruit picker because I loved grapefruits. And so when I was little, my mom would sometimes bring me over to swim, and I'd be in the pool, and I would be like, wait a minute, why are we here? You brought her the grapefruit picker. And then I wouldn't have my grapefruit picker for months. And, yeah, until all the oranges were gone. But by the time the oranges were gone, the grapefruits were also gone. So I never had my grapefruit picker, but it was okay, because I loved her so much, and she always took it. But we don't have a grapefruit tree anymore, so oh well.
I don't know. Pick her for you now if you want it. I can bring it back up. You don't have to order it either, so.
Oh, there's my mom dying of embarrassment because I'm terrible. Oh, she bought her one for her birthday. Okay.
Oh, you did?
So apparently she got her own grapefruit picker from her orange tree, which is apparently no longer there. But Shelley, do you need a lime picker now?
We might need a lime picker. Are you available?
No.
Okay, great.
But the last time I saw Dianne was last year around this time, July. I went over to see Shelley actually for her to show me all her Nickelodeon stuff since I'm interested in art. And I think my last memory of Dianne was her saying, "Sit down, honey, sit down. Do you want water? Do you want food? What do we have in the fridge?" Oh, nothing. Well, here's water. And she was so excited to show me her little cat, Misty, who is so cute. And she denied that Misty would ever be fluffy. She goes, no, she's a short-haired cat. But Misty turned out very, very fluffy. So, and I'm so glad that I got to see her that last time, and it was a great time. And she was up and happy and healthy then, so it was a great last memory for me and you. So, thank you.
That's one of the kids there, yep. Yeah, Dianne, if you guys came to the house, my mom would be like, okay, well, what do you want to eat? Even if we didn't have anything to eat, we'd fill you up on water. So there you go. There you go. Fill up on water. Pee before you go home. Don't forget. Yeah, or wine. Yes, that's very true. Anybody else have some fun, silly things? Or?
Oh, yeah, there's one silly thing.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
young lady right here, Manera,
Uh-huh.
she would come over. Manera, can you stand up? Okay, this is Manera. And we would, when Dianne or I would give these little functionings, Dianne gave her nickname, Pastry Girl. And the reason why she named her the Pastry Girl, because she would bring in these wonderful pastries. And so Dianne said, oh, is the Pastry Girl coming? And so she would always name her the Pastry Girl. So that's why she's here. Her name is Manera, and she would come to all our functionings.
Oh, Mark, and I want to thank the Rotary Club again. You guys, if it weren't for Mark and his Rotary Club, we wouldn't have this lovely venue. So please feel free to give some donations to Mark and a big clap. Yes. Mark wants to say something.
So, do I get a hug?
Yes, Peter.
Because your mom would give hugs.
Yes.
I would say that. But so you know, a lot of the members of the Friends of the Altadena Library Board and hardcore volunteers are sitting right here at this table, including past presidents of the board of the Friends. So I'm one, Marnie's one, Trevor's one. We never could get Joy or Marilyn to do it, but they all have stories, and I haven't seen any of them raise their hands, but I got to tell you that, you know, we also have the foundation, which Sharon was part of starting. You know, David Datz was doing it. I saw Dale, but is Dale not here? Hey, Rex. I didn't see Rex walking. You know, the library was real important to Dianne, but I think Dianne was real important to all the people that participated in the library. And the rest of the community. I mean, I think what Chuck said was the importance of you know, being in a community and making sure you made a difference. And I think that's what you were trying to say. I mean, you said it eloquently, of course, But you know, the idea that we can all make a difference. And so if you noticed when we first went up to get the first round of food, the bamboo and the plates versus the paper that are there now, for those that might have saved their plates, right? We're all in it together. And so, and Chuck did say that the latest library director that we've had, Nikki Winslow, who's here, I think many people are hoping that she will continue to be here for 5 or 10 or 15 years, or, you know, a long time, because the library is important to this community. And Dianne helped make it important. And so before I say thank you to all of our friends, somebody's got to say something, because some of you that were, Dianne would come in on Mondays, right? So we would have the Monday book sorting. It's really done in a different way than it was 10 years ago. But, you know, they did a lot of work getting those books that would be resold when we would either do it in the parking lot or in the bookstore at the library. So thank you for any and all of you that are contributing to the Friends of the Altadena Library. It's not going to Rotary, we're just kind of taking the QR code for it and monies that come from credit cards, but everything's going to the Friends. So thank you with that. Where'd you go?
Thank you again, Lamar. Anybody else have some fun stuff they want to say? Oh, this is my mom zip lining on Catalina Island. She was struggling that day, but that's true to form, is that my mom is like got that smile on her face. So Sharon, her other daughter.
This is going to be hard. I really love Dianne, and I knew Dianne loved me. We told each other all the time, and I want to just add on to the volunteerism part. Whew. Dianne was a dear friend. She was family. She was my second mom, and she was a mentor. And I talked to her about being a mom. I talked to her about my career, about all kinds of things, and she would just gently give me advice and guidance and wisdom. And so because of her, I joined the Friends of the Altadena Library back in, I don't know, 2006, I think, as a board member. And then because of that, went on to become the chair of the Altadena Library Foundation. And she just was such an amazing volunteer that she got other people to volunteer. And so I encourage all of you to keep that legacy going and volunteer and get your friends to volunteer. I just want to thank you all for being here and loving Dianne like I did, and yeah, thanks.
This is the good daughter, mostly. That's the good daughter, Sharon. Sharon would be the recipient, as Marcy said, my mom, shopping was her favorite pastime, but so returning was also her second favorite, returning clothes to Macy's, Ross, Marshalls. They knew my mom by her first name when she walked in. I know, exactly, Wendy. So I have a closet full of clothes if anybody wants some stuff, Macy's or Marshalls or Ross or whatever. But Sharon was very, very special to my mom, and we really appreciate everything Chuck and Sharon have done, and all the Thomas family have done for our mom. And really, Dianne was everybody's mom, really, in this building. So, I mean, unless they were the same age, and then they were best friends. So, well, you know what I mean, what I'm trying to say. Anybody else want to?
Good brother.
Oh, the good brother over here.
Maybe you can tell them this one.
Yes, this is the good brother. So, gosh, man, God, 40s. So I worked for Outward Bound Adventures many, many years ago, and I had was a representative for OBA at the Altadena Town Council. There I met this CHP officer. Of course, the average median age at the Altadena Town Council was 65 years old. Of course, then I was like in my 20s or 30s or something. So they were like the old farts. So I naturally gravitated towards Gretchen Jacobs, who was the PAO, the Public Affairs Officer for the Highway Patrol, and another friend of ours, Jennifer Weston, who was the field representative for Mike Antonovich. So we became fast friends because we naturally gravitated toward each other, but became best friends with Gretchen. Our families blended with the Jacobs family. And so Gretchen couldn't be here today. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know about Gretchen and seen my baby boy, Austin, grow up on social media. And he couldn't be here today because he's got an exam on Monday. But the next best representative is the good brother. And how we got to that name is, again, our family's blended, and their grandmother was Gummy, and Gummy would call Gretchen, Gretchen was ornery, and she would say Gretchen's as ornery as a rattlesnake. And so Gretchen was the bad daughter, Steve was the good brother, and I'm the good sister. So Steve, he's an audiovisual phenomenon in his own right, and he's been taking video of us, and he wants to let you guys all have a way to see the video and the pictures that he's posted, and he's going to let you know how to do that. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Hi, my name is Steve Jacobs. My wife, Jordana, over there. Raise your hand. So the pictures I'm taking today in the video, for people who couldn't attend, like my sister, I'm going to create a Dropbox link, and anyone who sends me an email to my email address, I will send you the link, and you can go to the Dropbox and you can download whichever print you want. It's an easy email to remember, if you can, mediadude@verizon.net. The dude, media dude. Anyway, I just wanted to say a few words about Dianne and how we met their family. Had my sister Gretchen not met Michelle, we would not know the amazing Dianne Moore. My sister often spoke. My sister often spoke about this family years before we actually met them. And I found it odd at the time because I'm like, you have a family. She's like, our family is jacked up. This is the family I wanted. And so a few years later, we actually did get to meet the family. And just as my sister abducted them, we did too. What I remember most about Dianne was her ability to make you feel like you were the only person in the room. She asked questions and engaged my wife and I I remember her smile, the tone of her voice, the unspoken grace, her beauty and intelligence. And she reminded me a lot of my grandmother, Gummy, because they were exactly the same. Dianne one time texted me. She said, "You're like the son I always hoped for." And that just touched my heart. And so I started calling her Mom. Several years ago, I was hired to take some photographs at the Rose Parade, and Dianne hosted me at her home. And it was one of the most pleasant evenings. We talked about books, and right around 6:30 p.m., she's like, "I have to stop you because I have to watch World News Tonight with David Muir." And I'm like, "Me too." So she did. I have a crush on him. So we sat there watching the broadcast. I had Merlot, she had Chardonnay. But Dianne was also funny too. And one of the funniest stories I remember is we were visiting, and my wife said to her in her living room, "Dianne, you're so beautiful. You could go out there and have your pick of men." And she said, as she often did, "Honey," she liked to start the sentence, "Honey, men at my age only want two things, a purse or a nurse." And I never forgot that. It was so stinking funny. Anyway, Michelle, Marcy, family, and friends, Dianne Moore was simply an amazing human being. We know she wasn't our mom, but she kind of made us feel like she was. And so we miss her just the same.
That's why you're the good brother, Steve. Anybody else? That's the good brother there. And Gretchen and Austin couldn't be here. Austin has my baby boy, AKA, has an exam on Monday, and he needs to cram for that, and he's fell on the sword. And anyway, you know how 20-year-olds are, but he's here with us, and Gretchen's here with us in spirit. And so with that, if there's nobody else wants to say anything, we really, again, appreciate everything. Please make sure you write a note to my mom on the biodegradable, very environmentally conscious paper. with graphite pencil. There are the bookmarks, which with my mom's favorite saying, tomorrow will be a better day on it. So please take those and do the coloring as you see fit, or take as many as you like, please. And just know that we all love you. Oh, Pam, the caterer, yes? Food. Get some grub to go. I think there's even some to-go containers, so please. And thank you again, Pam, for hustling your bustle. Thank you to Lark Crable, Lark Thomas for the flowers, to Chaya, thank you very much, honey, for helping, and the cousins and Aunt Pat, for everybody. If I'm sure I forgot somebody. Marcy, thank you for being my sister, and you're doing a good job of it. Keep it up. I make it easy, I know, to have a big sister, so, but yeah, and Teresa Rochester, thank you for your help. Ann back there, Andy, Carrie, Sharon, Chucky, thank you guys all for your help, and yeah, so thank you guys very much. Micah wants to take a bite of everybody's food before they go. Also, look at the pictures. I hope you guys all got a chance to take a look at the pictures of Dianne throughout the years. But anyway, thank you guys. Love you all, and get out of here. Okay? Thank you so much.